hear me, right? Okay. Okay, hi, I'm Jessica Rodriguez. I'm from Uruapan, Michoacan, which is some part around the center of Mexico. And I'm just working and studying here in Canada right now in a PhD in communications, new media, and cultural studies. And well, basically what I'm going to talk right now is related to my research here in the PhD. So basically, this is kind of like some screenshots of my work. So it's kind of nice because it's also related to a speech in a different way, as Lorena was talking, but it's a nice transition between Lorena and my work. But yeah, I work a lot with live coding. I work a lot with electronic literature. I just basically, what I really like about live coding and electronic literature and the mix of those two practices is that I can work with language and with speech and just deconstruct both of them. So I'm going to talk a little bit about where does my practice come from? So it's more like a philosophical question, what I'm bringing to you. But yeah, okay. So my practice, again, it comes from like several, or I can like draw from several practices, audiovisual practices, audiovisual studies, multimedia, new practices, experimental video, installation, live performance. But something that has been like very, very important for me in the last like 3 years is this first one, which is the virtual and cyber theater. Because once I kind of like went to like other fields of knowledge, like obviously outside of the ones that I was kind of like already existing, I started like learning a lot. And I also, for me, it was a way to question myself a lot of the things that I was doing. So one of the things that I found out in like reading about teatro virtual or cyber theater, and it comes from this author that is Parker Starbuck. Yeah, she says theater performance spaces. She thinks like these spaces as laboratories where bodies intertwine with technology and where the digital meets other kind of entities or ways of being, obviously technological bodies, but also human bodies, and how we reconstruct and reimagine ourselves and our technologies through like the practice that we do, or in this case, the practice of performance. So to kind of like demonstrate a little bit what I'm saying is that I'm going to talk a little bit about this piece, which is Memorias or Memories. And it's an artistic project that kind of like unfolded in 6 esolangs. So the ones that you're like looking on the back. Basically, each esolang does different things in terms of like sound or visuals. They create either sound or visual. And they are also like inspired or drawing from different aesthetic influences in both audio and visuals. So yeah, I'm gonna play just like 1 minute, so you can I'm gonna double check that I'm also sharing my sound. I wasn't sharing my sound. Okay, I'm gonna play. Okay, and I will also send the link for this piece on whole project. So yeah, so just talking about this again, just bringing these technological human assemblages that actually I'm taking this from obviously Latour, but also like more like about Janet Bennett, which kind of like sees like kind of recovers Latour from a feminist perspective, and it's not just about like the human and technological assemblage, but also about like the different kind of materialities that all the agents have within like something. She doesn't really focus in art. Sometimes she just focuses in different things, but it's like how everything that forms something like a structure has different materialities with different characteristics, and how the power dynamics are always like fluctuating between different like parts of that assemblage. So so kind of like how can I or how can I link this to my performance practice? So I obviously think about these bodies, or this concept of agents or bodies that can be organic, non-organic, physical, not physical, human, non-human. It can be any kind of being or thing that is part of the performance. And specifically about this performance, well, we have a lot of things that we can recognize. We obviously have the computer, we have the programming languages that I'm using. There are 6 of them, and there are different bodies because they have different logics too in themselves. We have me as the performer, but I also have performed this piece with my collective. So we also have like different human bodies that are existing in different spaces in the world, right? Because some of them are in Argentina, some of them are in different parts of Mexico, I'm in Canada. The audience is also like a body that is existing within the time and space of my performance. What is my speakers, all the technology, but also like everything, even the network that is kind of like enabling my performance in this kind of a space or in this kind of event. So how can all these agents exist or coexist in the piece or in the time of my piece, and how they influence each other? Because it's not just how I kind of like modify the computer or how the computer modifies me, but actually it's both, because it's a symbiotic relationship. So yeah, kind of like I like to recover this from Jennifer. She says technologies are not just enabler systems, they also imprint distinctive aesthetics behaviors in human bodies. And we were talking about the biases that we also imprint in them. So for that reason, I'm saying that this is kind of like something that is like like just it's both directions. So bodies imprints biases or imprints behaviors in technology, but also technology do that with us or with any other body, even with the audiovisual bodies that we can create as an artist or as a multimedia artist. So let's see an example with my piece. So I told you that my piece is 6 ESO lengths that are kind of like existing in this platform that is called Estory. That is a multilingual platform. So for that reason, I can have, like different languages that do different things at the same time, and it is online. So the first 3 ESO lengths that you saw, like that you can see in the top, which is leer, escribir, and observar, there are like parsing tidal cycles. So if you are not familiar with tidal cycles, it's a programming language for light coding that creates music patterns. So it's more like rhythmical. It's meant to be more rhythmical, but because I'm using it in a way to create the speech patterns, I'm kind of like breaking the usual time of tidal cycle, which is very fast. So I'm just like playing with a very stretched time or cycle to kind of like be able to create cacophonies or just to deconstruct the speech through obviously the samples that I have. The other one that that is here is there, which is parsing programming language also for live coding that is called Punctual. Punctual is actually a programming language for audio-visual synthesis, but in this case, I'm just using the sound synthesis to exist in my piece. The next one is Escuchar, which is parsing Cinecero. Cinecero, it just lives in Estory in this online platform and is for Kinect text and live video. And the last one is Oír, which is parsing Hydra that does visual synthesis, which is a programming language for like a web that lives in, you can access to the website, to our website. So it's kind of like, okay, so we are, I'm like, these are all the agents, like, and actually multiple layers of agents here happening. The first agent or the first body that is kind of like giving me already a logic to work with is tidal cycles. Then we have Punctual, we have Cinecero, we have Adra, and then within them, we have different ways in which video or sound can exist and can behave. But then I'm kind of like building over those behaviors to imprint the behaviors that I want for this piece. In the case, for example, of tidal cycles, I'm just like saying, no, I'm just going to break the cycle. It's not going to be fast. I'm just going to stretch the cycle. It's going to be very slow so I can hear the voice that is coming, and I can create poetry or deconstructed poetry. And this is not just like this. I'm also working as in a story as an agent that also provides me these kind of like behaviors or social behaviors to telematic performance, to like the how these can coexist together in the same like platform, etc. And I'm just like analyzing this very specific because all of this is actually building in Haskell. So I'm also working with Haskell, and that's kind of like also kind of like interfere in the way that I'm constructing the piece. So going back to the cyber theater theme, Gabriela Ghishani, which is another author, says that bodies are always moving. So performance and theater are spaces of collision between the virtual and the real that expose and reshape reality. And going back to my esolangs, it's kind of like, okay, the reality was actually these esolangs were inspired by actual literature or short stories that I wrote. The first one was in English, and actually when I translated into Spanish, the text was already moving. Like if you can read Spanish, you can see that it's not really a direct translation of my English version. So when I was imagining the kind of like the Esolang version, which is a mix or a hybridization between natural languages and computer language, I didn't want it to be the exact same thing. I wanted to be a language that is alive, that is always moving and changing and reshaping itself and affecting the reality in their way back. So I see coding and I see these esolangs or this space or this piece as a space of collision and reshaping my reality, which in this case, all the piece is about my memories and how can I how can we reshape our memories every time that we retold them. And then lastly, Gabriela Janishi talks about this concept of hypersurface. And then she explained this as a liminal state between the agents and the technology. But for me, it's just like the hypersurface is just like something that is ephemeral. Here is like meta dimension is not like something physical, but that allows to all the agents and body to exist together in the same space in this case, in this space of the performance. So I see in this case, I think that language is actually my hypersurface, because through language, I can interact with the computer, I can interact with all these like audiovisual logics, I can interact with other performances. The computer can interact back with me because I'm hearing what the computer is producing or what these are producing. And well, language is always like this hypersurface is always moving because I'm always creating different kind of poetry with like audiovisual poetry and also text poetry. with this tool. So yeah, I hope it wasn't too much. Again, it was more like a philosophical question of how can I see my practice? How can I relate with my practice? And as an exercise that when we create something digitally or even physically, we're always interacting with other agents, and those agents are always like communicating with us. So it's like a dialogue with the computer, what I'm doing here, and a dialogue with this system of SOLangs that I created. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. That was